Thrasymachus doesn't immediately catch on because it's not an obvious argument. He says, well, think of it this way. For a person that doesn't know a techne, aren't they the ones that want to get the better of everybody? Whereas a person that really thoroughly knows a techne only wants to get the better of people who are different, who don't know what they're doing, rather than those who do. Let me give you a concrete example, make it a little more obvious. Imagine a doctor, cardiologist, knows all about hearts. Now, if someone has a heart attack and a real cardiologist goes up and starts doing the appropriate medical thing to him, well then suppose a second cardiologist walks in and sees that the guy's had a heart attack and sees that the cardiologist is doing something good for him. A cardiologist in this case is a man who knows the techne, the medicine of hearts. Well, the second cardiologist says, well, no, that's the right procedure, that's the right treatment. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to get the better of him, say, get off him, I'm going to do the right cardiac thing. As long as both doctors really understand this techne, really understand doctoring, well, then the second physician doesn't want to get the better of the first. Now, consider a second circumstance. Someone has a heart attack, and a quack doctor comes in first and starts some procedure that's completely inappropriate to someone that has a heart attack.
Turn right onto Avenida Menendez, Florida A1A.
Because he's a quack doctor, doesn't know anything. Now, our cardiologist comes in again, has a look at what's going on here and says, get away from him, you're going to kill this guy, he's having a heart attack, and here you are doing some ridiculous procedure that has nothing to do with the knowledge of medicine. What this means, or that what I'm taking this as an instantiation of, is the idea that the true knower, the true technician, or the true craftsman, artist, something like that, in this case the art of doctoring, doesn't want to get the better of people that know doctoring. And see, look, he's a real doctor, he knows his business, he's handling this right, I don't have to do anything. But he certainly wants to get the better of the quack doctor because he's going to harm the patient. And remember, this doctor who has, the second one who has the technique, he's interested in the benefit of the patient, right? So now we make this analogy and move from the doctor's art to the political art. Does the real politician, does he want to rule? Does he? Suppose he comes to a city that's well run, that has a real lawful king who has real political knowledge and is running the city very well. Does he want to usurp that power? No, in the same way that the doctor doesn't want to take over from the other doctor, he's doing just fine. On the other hand, when a city is badly run by people that don't have political knowledge, that make foolish laws or foolish decisions, and a real politically knowledgeable person comes in, a political philosopher comes in, does he want to get the better of that city? Yes. That's analogous to the case of the quack doctor. So in every case, Socrates makes the argument that the knower only wants to get the better of the ignorant, and only for the benefit of the person who's going to be harmed by the ignorance. But the ignorant man always wants to get the better both of other ignorant men and of other knowledgeable men, and in that respect make the world worse and harm the thing that this techne applies to, whether it's medicine to bodies.
Continue on Florida A1A for 1.5 miles.
Or political theory to cities. The argument then is this. Socrates shows Thrasymachus that every art is interested in the domain that it covers, and that the true artist, in the sense the true technician or the true craftsman, wants to supersede only those who don't understand the craft. If you do understand the craft, all the other craftsmen in the world are on the same side. And you can look at the craft of medicine or the craft of politics. One is dovetailed into the other. Now, Thrasymachus is silenced at this point. And the key thing here, one of the great small snippets in all of Platonism, it's in section 350d. Thrasymachus blushes. It's beautiful. Oh yes. Thrasymachus has been sweating profusely through this grilling from Socrates because he was forced to stay, and he wants to look good in front of all these young men because he's an outsider and he wants to make money selling his sophistry to the young men of Athens. So he stays and does battle with Socrates, and Socrates shows him that not only do you not understand politics, but you don't even understand how to talk. Socrates ties them all up, and at the end, Thrasymachus can't talk anymore. He blushes. And then he gets even more petulant. Now, Thrasymachus blushing and sweating, right, shows that Socrates grilled him and grilled him well. On the other hand, even though Thrasymachus is silenced, he's not refuted. The reason why is that many of these arguments are fishy, many of them are quite dubious. And Socrates is doing this on purpose. You see, here's another thing you have to think about when you read the dialogues. When Socrates, first of all, when you think Socrates is making a bad argument, the chances are that he's making a good argument and you don't understand it. That's number one. All right. In other words, if any time you think it's a bad argument, look through it again. Usually, if you reread it or think it over more thoroughly, you will come to the conclusion that this is a better argument than you thought. That's problem number one. But there are other times when there are legitimately bad arguments in Plato. There, my argument is that generally speaking, these are intentional. Perhaps not always, because Plato, like anyone, is going to make mistakes. But these dialogues are put together with a remarkable and almost unbelievable amount of care and logical precision. And when you find a bad argument in Plato, usually what it means is that Plato is making a mistake instructively. In other words, when you really find an argument that doesn't make sense, he's doing one of two things. One, he's trying to gesture at something else. Happens occasionally. Or two, even more interesting, he's setting up the further development of the argument. Now, at the end of Book 1, Socrates has met and stopped the discourse on justice produced by three people, Cephalus, Polemarchus, and Thrasymachus. All three of these people are non-citizens. Right? Cephalus and his son Polemarchus are both medics. They're resident aliens. Thrasymachus is a transient teacher of rhetoric. Book 2, which is what's being set up here, is going to start out the dialogue between Socrates, Adeimantus, and Glaucon. Adeimantus and Glaucon are both native Athenians. They're both talented men. They're both smart, and they're all both up-and-coming young men who are thinking about careers in politics. The real point of the Republic is the battle over the education of these noble souls. Will Thrasymachus be the educator, or will Socrates? The reason why Socrates meets Thrasymachus, but only with inferior arguments, is that he's trying to bait the young men into starting a big discussion about the nature of justice and the nature of virtue. And the only way that he can do that is by defeating Thrasymachus, but not defeating him so thoroughly that the argument is wrapped up. He wants to bring the boys in and say, look, and have them radicalize the argument, the idea being that the defeat of Thrasymachus will lead to a more detailed, complete discussion of justice based upon the radicalization of Thrasymachus' argument by Adeimantus and Glaucon. Adeimantus and Glaucon are the real object of this discussion. Socrates wants to take over their education, and he can only do that first by defeating Thrasymachus, and second by igniting their curiosity about the nature of justice. The lectures you're about to see cover the last 3,000 years of Western intellectual history. They cover most of the important problems in Western thought and high culture, and they will involve a kind of thinking that most people don't spend most of their time doing. It's called philosophy. The word philosophy comes from two Greek words, the words for love and wisdom, or knowledge. And philosophy is more or less a love of wisdom, a sort of passion for knowledge, which goes beyond what we can get from it, which goes beyond practical concerns. And the intellectual tradition of the West forms a more or less coherent philosophic tradition with a common set of problems, a roughly similar set of issues under consideration, and a similar